Carrie Lam says continued worries about untraceable sources of local COVID infections mean city can't let down its guard. Tourism industry pledges local tours will not become vectors for COVID. And Trump and Biden make a final push for votes this weekend.
Welcome to TVB News. Hong Kong reported 6 coronavirus cases with 1 unknown source of infection.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam described the situation as generally stable, but said 1 local case with an unknown source is 1 case too many. Pinky Wong reports.
The patient who caught the virus without a traceable origin is a 42-year-old man who lives in Beverly Garden in Cheung Kwan O. He tested preliminary positive with a high viral load yesterday. The man came down with a sore throat last Tuesday and went to a private clinic the day after. He last went to work at a Siu Yin commercial building in Sheung Wan last Wednesday. The 5 imported cases are patients aged between 8 and 52 from France, the US, the Philippines, Pakistan, and Ireland. Chief Executive Carrie Lam wrote on her Facebook page explaining the government's decision not to relax social distancing measures to a large extent as they saw some Western European countries experience a rapid rebound. Lam noted there have still been local cases with unknown sources over the past 2 weeks and said 1 local case of an unknown source is 1 case too many. The CE urged the public to remain vigilant and stressed the government will continue to adopt a precise approach to combat the situation while minimizing the impact on society. Police patrolled the bars in Wan Chai last night and found 2 of them, one with 26 customers and the other with 16, exceeding the gathering limit. Officers then issued 42 fixed penalty tickets. Representatives of the bar were prosecuted for violating anti-epidemic rules at a catering business premises. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
The government expects Hong Kong's economic performance to improve in the 3rd quarter. In his blog, Financial Secretary Paul Chan says the rapid economic recovery on the mainland has driven Hong Kong's growth. He added there would be considerable spikes, especially on the import and export fronts. But Chan doesn't pin too much hope on other local economic indicators. While the rate of economic contraction is slowing, Chan says the city is still dogged by the shadow of recession.
The tourism industry is vowing to offer virus-free local tours after the government eased the gathering ban for this sector to help it survive the economic impact of the pandemic.
Our Haley Joe spoke to Jason Wong, chairman of the Travel Industry Council, on how they can deliver on that promise.
Not knowing when it can reopen the borders to visitors, the government has offered the tourism sector a limited exemption from the ban on public gatherings. Since Friday, tour agencies can organize a tour group of up to 30 people.
I think the feedback is positive. More than 79 travel agents registers with TIC for the exemption, and more than 100 itineraries has been received so far.
But the exemption comes with caveats. Everyone on tour should provide their name and contact information, go through a temperature check, wear a mask at all times, and their vehicles cannot exceed half capacity. People in high-risk categories and their close contacts could be refused tours. And one of your tour mates could be an undercover inspector.
We will have inspectors to visit those gathering points or those green spots to help check. Some even might join the tours as a secret shopper to keep check on those situations.
And if they got caught violating hygiene protocols,
we will suspend the travel agents from organizing local tours under the exemption for 1 month.
The council will arrange free COVID-19 tests for tour guides. Wong says unlike the care home industry where major cluster outbreaks have emerged, it's rare for tour guides to work for multiple employers.
It's possible, but it's very uncommon for those tour guides to jump over different travel agents to organize the tours.
Wong says the industry will strictly comply with the rules as its survival hinges on it.
We are very concerned about keeping the standard to keep our exemption because this is the only business we can do.
Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Officials and a pro-establishment heavyweight are doubling down on Beijing's latest plan to further integrate Hong Kong with the mainland.
They also offered more details on how the government hopes to facilitate cross-border opportunities for young talent from both the mainland and Hong Kong. Dong Yao-nie has more.
Today, Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung made a bold forecast. The Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area will become the world's largest Bay Area in the near future. That as controversy brews over Beijing's plan to highlight Shenzhen as a core engine in China's latest regional development scheme. Cheung rejects claims Shenzhen will replace Hong Kong, insisting the central government is not going to marginalize or mainlandize the city. Instead, he says both cities should complement each other to reach a win-win situation. Another pro-establishment member also waded in. Tam Yu-chung says the SAR's unique status is not replaceable.
Hong Kong, of course, is very important, and also the central government is very support Hong Kong.
Tam says the city enjoys high freedom in financial activities and capital exchange, which can't be beaten by Shenzhen. Meanwhile, more details on efforts to integrate young people from both the mainland and Hong Kong through academic and career opportunities. The chief secretary says each year, some 4,000 Hong Kong young people were sent by the government to do internships on the mainland. And last year, more than 18,000 local youths received subsidies to conduct cross-border exchanges in mainland cities, which he says has strengthened their national identification. But some exchanges raised concerns on academic freedom. There are reports 2 mainland professors from Tsinghua University have been named vice principals at the University of Hong Kong.
No problem.
Tam didn't deny the rumor, but instead endorsed the academic credibility of scholars from one of China's top institutes. Dong Yao-nie, TVB News.
Overseas, with the U.S. presidential election a little more than a week away, the contenders continue to make a last-minute push for votes.
President Donald Trump keeps hammering home the message America has turned the corner on the pandemic, while challenger Joe Biden says Trump has mishandled the coronavirus outbreak.
The American heart, and it's time we stand and say.
Campaigning in North Carolina, U.S. President Donald Trump told supporters packed shoulder to shoulder that the recovery from the coronavirus has begun and he's the right choice.
It's a choice between a Trump super boom and a Biden lockdown. Did you hear him the other night? It's going to be a cold, dark winter. Very inspiring guy. This is very inspiring. Whoa. I even said, whoa. Whoa. No, we got to have spirit, our country. You know, we're coming back. We're rounding the turn. We're doing great. Our numbers are incredible.
Biden held rallies in Pennsylvania where he was critical of Trump's handling of the pandemic.
More than 220,000 dead Americans because of COVID-19. And yesterday, while he's telling us everything's all right, we saw the highest number, 85,000 new cases in one day since this pandemic began. And yesterday, the worst day we've ever had. Yet, at the debate on Thursday night, Donald Trump said and is still saying, we're rounding the corner. It's going away. We're learning how to live with it. What I told him at the debate, we're not learning how to live with it. You're asking us to learn how to die with it.
In another key battleground state of Florida, the vice president's old running mate also backed his candidacy for president, while also taking a shot at the current commander-in-chief.
You know, Donald Trump, I knew he would not embrace my vision. I knew he wasn't going to continue my policies, but I did hope that for the country's sake, he'd show at least a little bit of interest in taking the job seriously. That's not how it worked out. He hasn't shown any interest in doing the work or helping anybody except himself and his friends, or treating the presidency like a reality show to give himself more attention.
Obama also mocked Trump for his decision to end a TV interview early with news magazine 60 Minutes after being pressed on some issues. He says that underscores how Trump isn't fit to be president.
Meanwhile, members of U.S. Vice President Mike Pence's inner circle have tested positive for the coronavirus. That includes his Chief of Staff, Mark Short. Pence is considered a close contact and must follow coronavirus protocols. That means he will be closely monitored for symptoms of COVID-19 and wear a mask whenever around other people. The vice president will continue with his campaign schedule. Both Pence and his wife, Karen, tested negative Saturday and remain in good health.
Tensions in Thailand show no signs of dying down. Protesters say they will continue demonstrations today and Monday after Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha ignored a deadline to resign. Since July, demonstrators have been demanding the departure of the PM and a new constitution. Prayut has issued a call to allow Parliament to seek a solution to the crisis this coming week. In a gesture to appease protesters, he revoked a state of emergency for Bangkok that made protest rallies illegal. In addition to calling for Prayut's resignation, protesters' core demands include reforms to the monarchy. The king has made no public comments on the protests, but his praise Friday for a man who held up a royal portrait and an anti-establishment rally stirred emotion. Monarchists praised the action, while protesters scorned it.
Coming up after the break, pandemic sees a subdued Chun Yung festival. Growing concerns over continued surge of COVID infections in Europe. And former Samsung Group chairman Lee Kun-hee dies.
Thanks for sticking with us here on TVB News. Today is Chun Yung Festival. Traditionally, it's when families pay respects to their ancestors by cleaning their graves.
But due to the pandemic, a smaller turnout was seen at the cemeteries. Jackie Lin reports.
The Diamond Hill Urn Cemetery is usually packed this time of the year. But many graves were unattended today. Families who chose to honor the tradition this day also faced extra hassles. Like Mr. Lai here, who says his family needed to split into small groups of 4 and visit their ancestors' resting place in batches. Mr. Yao here also lamented, even when the economy seems to be tanking, the price of paper offerings doubled this year. Because of the pandemic, the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department appealed to the public to defer paying tributes to their deceased loved ones to avoid crowds gathering. But it's not just health hazards, fire hazards are another major concern. While there are designated areas for burning paper offerings, these rituals are often blamed for spreading hill fires. This year was no exception. With the yellow fire danger warning, which indicates a high risk of fire, authorities received more than 40 reports of hill fires today. Most happened around the northern New Territories, including on this hillside in Shangshui. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Police identified a rising trend of mainlanders crossing the border illegally for prostitution in the city. In a 2-day anti-crime operation, police arrested 58 people and seized a large quantity of alcohol and pornographic discs. Those arrested include 2 mainland females who allegedly crossed the border illegally to work in the prostitution industry in Hong Kong. Police found more of these offenses happening in hotels recently as local hotel prices have dropped due to the pandemic.
The mother of the Taiwan murder victim Poon Hui Wing did not meet with police as scheduled. A former teacher of Poon's who has been assisting the mother said the meeting did not happen as police did not provide a reply. Poon's mother wanted police to answer whether the meeting was to discuss a plan with Taiwan authorities on the surrender of Chan Tong-kai. Chan earlier failed to obtain a visa to enter Taiwan. Police said the Security Bureau issued a statement yesterday that said nothing, noting Taiwan has to take the first step in allowing Chan's entry to resolve the matter for police units of both sides to start working on the arrangement.
Around 90% of unionized staff at the hospital authority think hiring retired management will adversely impact their work opportunities. Representatives from 6 unions, including the HA Employees Alliance, met with the press holding a banner saying, "Oppose black box operation." The group surveyed some 900 current employees of the hospital authority last month. Around 90% disagree with rehiring retired management personnel. The rehiring policy had only been applicable to frontline staff members. In May, the authority appointed Alexander Law as chief executive of the Kowloon West cluster, which was opposed by many staff.
Overseas again, COVID cases in Europe continued to spike this weekend. This despite many countries re-implementing lockdown restrictions.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel once again called for unity as protests defying new curbs on public life broke out across the continent. Daniel Rowell has more.
Europe appears to be well and truly in the midst of a second wave of coronavirus infections. The spike in cases has prompted leaders throughout the continent to reimpose lockdown restrictions. In Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel once again urged her countryfolk to limit social gatherings as much as possible. This as 14,714 cases were reported there on Saturday. Germany's death toll also surpassed 10,000. In Italy, officials discussed the implementation of new lockdown measures with regional authorities. The talks came as confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country surpassed 500,000. The nation's confirmed death toll, the second highest in Europe after Britain's, also rose to 37,210. Despite this, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte still appears reluctant to reimpose severe restrictions. Certain regional governments have, however, enforced curfews nonetheless. One such curfew fueled anger in Naples, triggering a violent clash by protesters with police. At the Vatican, Pope Francis met with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez on Saturday. The pair reportedly discussed the pandemic in addition to political and social issues. Spain became the first country in Western Europe this week with more than 1 million confirmed virus cases. Sanchez said the actual number of infections in his country could be more than triple that, but is unknown due to testing gaps. His government is now preparing to reinforce a state of emergency in various parts of the country. Elsewhere, Greek officials introduced mandatory mask wearing in all public venues. Greece's COVID caseload is rapidly increasing. Health authorities announced a daily record of 935 new infections on Saturday, along with 5 deaths. The country had emerged relatively unscathed from Europe's first coronavirus outbreak. Daniel Rowell, TVB News.
Afghanistan's military claims to have killed a top al-Qaeda propagandist during an operation in the east of the country. The reported death of Husman Abd al-Rauf follows weeks of violence, which culminated with a suicide bombing Saturday. The bombing took place at an education center near Kabul. It killed 24 people and injured 57 more. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack, which took place in an area of the city heavily populated by Shiite Muslims. The Taliban, which remains locked in negotiations with the Afghan government, distanced itself from the attack. Analysts fear the instability could derail the Afghan government's peace talks with the Taliban in Qatar. And Lee Kun-hee, the former Samsung chairman who transformed the company into a global giant of consumer electronics, has died at the age of 78. Lee reportedly died surrounded by family members, including his only son and Samsung vice chairman Lee Jae-yong. The cause of his death has yet to be announced, but Lee had been hospitalized since May 2014 after suffering a heart attack. South Korean President Moon Jae-in will offer a floral tribute and send 2 senior presidential officials to console Lee's family as soon as the mourning site is established. The former Samsung chairman won plaudits for guiding the company to unprecedented success from its humble beginnings. Lee was, however, embroiled in numerous corruption scandals over the years. Thanks for joining us. Pearl Magazine is up next.
Bye for now.